campaign, The Beloved Community Talks. Let's bridge the racial divide across urban, suburban, and rural America.
Before you can have an open and honest conversation about such a strong and hard topic such as race, you have to come in open-minded and check the privilege that you hold at the door and be willing to open up and learn.
I think the way you look at it, though, and there are some people you're never going to get through to. There's some people that are hate mongers. Well, they break the law, they pay the price, okay? But let me also say that, the bottom line on this issue is that when we approach people who have a completely different position, and I have some that I have to work with that just completely disagree with me. I have two choices. I can either lose my temper and get into it with them, or I can be patient. And the easiest way to disarm somebody who's angry at you is not to return anger with anger.
We spend too much time talking about each other and talking at each other, and not enough time talking with each other.
I've been in Memphis all my life. I have never walked in the doors of the Martin Luther King Museum there, but one day I went in, and I remember walking through the museum, and there was a display of a Klansman with a robe and everything like that, in a glass in case, and I felt probably the most sick and embarrassed feeling in my life.
He gave me his robe and hood. This is the robe of the Imperial Wizard right here. Okay? And of course, the hood. This means he no longer believes in what this stands for. In fact, he has spoken out against it and has apologized. Upon occasion, he will go on lecture tours with me and speak out against the Klan. And it's all because of a conversation like we're having now.
I mean, we talk about where the problems are, but I think we like fussing about them more. I think we like complaining about them more instead of getting on the ball and getting engaged and using our sphere of influence. It doesn't matter how young you are or how old you are, you have the ability to influence things in another direction. And we can't just keep this divisiveness going.
You're not going to solve anything without digging in, and forget all the politics.
The Beloved Community Talks is a great opportunity to get in the discussion on race relations.
Beloved Community Talks.
Well, good evening, everybody, and I certainly hope that you are staying safe and staying well, and welcome to another Beloved Community Talks, continuing our series, Building the Beloved Community in the Midst of Crises. And this is our 5th episode, and it's my hope that these they have been meaningful to me. I pray that in some way we are helping you to navigate this very challenging and extremely difficult time that we find ourselves in. Last week, for those of you who joined us, you know that the inspiring Dr. Bernice Brown was with us discussing manifesting courage and resilience. And it was very well received and extremely relatable. And if you missed any of our previous episodes, we want to encourage you to go back and listen to them, as we have brought you some of the brightest minds and thought leaders to help all of us navigate these unprecedented times and this unprecedented crises that we find ourselves in. But tonight, I believe it's going to be very special. We are going to be talking about the collective power of we. And we have joining us as our special guest, Dr. Deepak Chopra. And I am so excited to have you, sir, on tonight. For those of you who don't know Dr. Chopra, many of you do, I just want to share a little bit of information and background on him. He is the founder of the Chopra Foundation, a nonprofit entity for research on well-being and humanitarianism, which we desperately need today. He's also the founder of Chopra Global, a modern-day health company at the intersection of science and spirituality. He's a well-known pioneer in integrative medicine and personal transformation, and he serves on the he's a senior scientist with the Gallup organization. He's also, and I want you to hear this because very few people can attest to this, he's the author of over 89 books. Wow. But get this, they have been translated into over 43 languages. So people all over the world know this global thought leader. Many of them have been New York Times bestsellers. His 90th book, I don't know how many people have 90 books, Dr. Chopra, my God. And it's also a national bestseller, is entitled Metahuman. We'll touch on that a little bit tonight. Unleashing Your Infinite Potential. And Time Magazine, of course, has described him as one of the top 100 heroes and icons during this century. So good evening, Deepak, and thank you for taking time to join us.
Thank you, Dr. King. Thank you for having me.
So I'm gonna jump in. I'm excited to have you tonight, and we are all really anticipating what you will be sharing with us on tonight. So undoubtedly, we are facing conditions and hardships right now that has impacted our global community in ways that we have never seen. Certainly for those of us in this generation of time. Doctors, nurses, hospital workers, and even our president have likened this pandemic to being in a war. People are not only sick, literally dying. We're losing a lot of lives. Millions upon millions are unemployed. Families are scared. Politicians are fighting. We're in major conflict in what my father called the world house. Like nothing we've seen in over 100 years. So my question to you, Dr. Chopra, is how do we quiet our minds with all of this conflict and chaos and rise above the noise to ensure that we utilize this time to work together as a world house to win this war while also building the beloved community, which I believe is for the greater good of humanity?
So first of all, Dr. King, thank you for having me. Secondly, if you don't mind, I'm going to suggest a correction.
Okay.
Since you mentioned your father, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I don't think he would like this metaphor of war. From Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela and your father, we learned that these metaphors are actually the wrong metaphors. War on COVID-19, war on poverty, war on racism, war on terrorism, war on climate change, war on eco-destruction, war on COVID now. This is the way we've thought, and it has never worked, and we keep recycling it.
Right.
There is no violent solution to any problem in the world. So I would get rid of this whole terminology, war on anything, including the war on COVID. What we need is creative solutions, and creative solutions are coming from people like yourself, right? Like your dad, like Mahatma Gandhi, like Nelson Mandela, like Mother Teresa. I could go on and on. They never used these ideas that we have to have a war on anything. Human imagination, human creativity, the human spirit is so resilient that it doesn't matter what the situation is. Those who want to be the change they want to see in the world will make it happen. That's what Mahatma Gandhi said. Can you be the change you want to see in the world? Martin Luther King Jr. said exactly the same thing. Nelson Mandela said exactly the same thing. So in these times, what we need is community that is within our community, but also expands our community. So together we can have shared vision, emotional and spiritual connections with each other, and actually strengthen and complement each other's strengths and creativity. So every ancient wisdom tradition from every part of the world has said, When a community comes together spiritually and emotionally, when they have a shared vision, and when they give each other attention, appreciation, affection, and acceptance, together they can make anything happen. Like a good sports team. Look at a good sports team. Sports team has everyone who's bonded spiritually and emotionally. They have a shared vision and they all do their part in helping each other. That's what we need now. Refuge in the community, refuge in the vision, and refuge in a higher consciousness. And we have the technology today. In fact, right now, you and I are using the technology to expand this conversation across the community.
Exactly. Now, I agree with what you said about the war terminology. How do you push people to really just silence all of this conversation and language that's coming at all of us, so that we can tap into this shared vision?
Yes, I think it's time to evoke a leadership in our communities, which is actually, for lack of a better word, the leadership comes from the level of the soul. And exactly, again, why I'm with you right now is because that is what your dad represented. That is what your father represented. He was the soul for a dream, as his famous speech said so. I have a dream, but it wasn't a personal dream. It was a collective dream.
Collective.
And therefore, he was acting as the soul of a group consciousness. And that is the kind of leadership we need across our communities at every level. So I have actually an acronym that might help you and your community. The acronym is LEADERS, LEADERS. So all the 7 letters actually stand for something.
Okay.
L stands for look and listen deeply right now to what is happening in the world. As a result of that, create a vision, not only for yourself, but for the collective. In the same words as your father expressed, I have a dream. What is our dream right now? So look and listen and create a vision, create a dream. Number 2, E stands for emotional intelligence, emotional empowerment, which starts with empathy, which is feeling what everybody is feeling right now, compassion, which is the desire to alleviate suffering, and love. But love not just as a theoretical idea, love in action, because love without action is meaningless, and action without love is irrelevant. But when we have love in action, come together in empathy and compassion, we can achieve extraordinary things. So that's E, emotional intelligence. A stands for expanding our awareness. Why are we having this crisis? There are 2 reasons for this crisis. One is that our collective ecosystem is obviously stressed. Mass transportation, high level density populations, poor hygienic conditions, and it's indirectly related to everything else that's happening in the world right now. A lot of stress, a lot of movement, a lot of anxiety is causing something in our bodies called an inflammatory storm. These are well documented. These inflammatory storms actually make people sicker. As you've seen, that there are more African Americans dying, particularly more African American males. But I actually looked into this whole thing very deeply and found, yes, it is affecting the African American community, but also other colored people and also Latin American people. And the direct correlation is with one thing, your zip code. Your zip code tells you whether you're likely to have chronic infection, and if you get acute infection, whether you're going to get sick as well, because the zip code reflects everything: education, social conditions, nutrition, socioeconomic status. So those are the things we need to address. In addition to the virus, we have to actually address social injustice, economic injustice. Those are issues that your father and you have been addressing for all these decades, but now it's magnified. We have to address these issues of social and economic injustice because they directly or indirectly contribute to the morbidity and the mortality from COVID-19. It's bringing our attention. So we need to expand our awareness. LEA. A stands for awareness. D stands for not only I have a dream, but how do I execute the dream? How do I do it? So, we need smart goals. We need to stretch more than we can reach. We need to make everything measurable. We need to agree within us what we want to achieve. We want to keep record of our progress, and we set time limits. That's how action is taken. So that's D, dreaming and doing. The next E, LEADERS, the next E stands for empowerment. We need to empower ourselves. We cannot depend on the government. We cannot depend on corporations. We cannot depend on special interest groups. We have to take the power in our own hands through creativity, through intuition, through compassion, through joy, through equanimity, and through peace. R stands for responsibility. We have to take responsibility for our own health, sleep well, maybe do a little meditation, prayer, and actually engage in emotional connection with each other through attention, appreciation, affection, and also make sure that we are taking care of ourselves at every level, whether it's nutrition, whether it's personal relationships, social interactions, emotional resilience. And finally, S stands for synchronicity. Synchronicity means good luck. And good luck happens when we are prepared, when we are centered, not when we are in panic. This panic actually recycles stress, which in turn increases inflammation in the body, compromises the immune system, and makes people sicker. So that's the formula that I'm sharing with you. We can all come to this together and actually execute these action steps in our communities with the kind of leadership that you represent, Dr. King, and also the King Center represents. This is the opportune moment right now for us that when we go back after this crisis is over, we actually together not only dream, but do it. Create a critical mass across the world, not only in America, across the world, in Africa, in East Europe, in Middle East, for a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. Otherwise, we'll have missed this opportunity.
And I know that many people don't want to miss this opportunity, but I want to ask you a question that I can imagine some people thinking in their minds right now as you hear all of this, which is very powerful. It's a prescription to life, period, if you ask me. And it's a prescription that works through all circumstances, all situations, crises-oriented or not. One of the challenges that I find usually in trying to push people to embrace something similar to this prescription that you just gave to us is getting people to rid themselves of these old mindsets that they have, these limitations and boundaries that we all have. And I want to mention my father's quote and ask you a question to connect it to your book, Metahuman, more than 52 years ago. And it's interesting that a lot of what he said, had we been able to grasp then, we would be able to manage most of what we have found ourselves in and to rid ourselves of the injustices and inequities in our world. But he said one of the great liabilities of life is that all too many people find themselves living amid a great period of social change, and yet they fail to develop the new attitudes, the new mental responses that the new situation demands. And I was like, wow, this COVID-19 crisis is certainly a new situation that's making demands on us in all kinds of ways, whether you're talking about our health, our finances, our family, our thought processes, politics, habits, etc. And so in Metahuman, if you would just share with us about this concept of metahuman and how it can collectively help us to meet the demands of this time, especially in light of what you just shared with us.
So, according to the ideas expressed in Metahuman, which is not really anything original, this has been said by wisdom traditions throughout the ages. The cause of all human suffering, is the fragmented, conditioned human mind. So, what do I mean by that? I mean that our minds have been conditioned by history. Our mind has been conditioned by the whole history of colonialism and conquest. That basically, we don't, right now, it's not a time for being resentful, but there's a history that goes with this. The history of colonialism and subjugation and slavery and disempowerment of other people. There's a long history that we are all, in a sense, a product of. The history includes economic history, racial history, obviously religious history, and the history of the world. And so it's very complicated. But once your mind is conditioned, then it's very difficult to operate outside the confines of the mind. It's very difficult to operate outside on beliefs that have been programmed into our condition, into our mind for thousands of years, not literally hundreds of years, thousands of years. Most of our conditioning comes from the Bronze Age. And we are living now in the year 2020, basically the 21st century, and yet we still behave as tribes from the Bronze Age.
Yes.
We still are ethnocentric and racist and bigoted and prejudiced. We still behave with the leaders of the world, with the exceptions like your father and a few others. But the leaders of the world are gangsters. They're thugs. All they want to do is control. They're indulging in cronyism, power mongering, influence peddling, corruption, what we call lobbyism, and all these sophisticated modes of lobbyism. So it's not an easy thing to go beyond the conditioned mind. But now is the time where we can actually do it, because we have technologies to expand this conversation. Even the technology we are using right now. We have social media, we have educational facilities, we have entertainment, we have music, we have hip hop, music, poetry, street music. We have amazing artists, we have amazing sports leaders, we have amazing new scientists, cosmologists. We should be able to do this. We should be able to go beyond our conditioning. Metahuman simply means, meta means beyond, human means the conditioned human mind, which has been going back to medieval times, to the Bronze Age. Together, today, we can create the ecosystem. Because what is the ecosystem? The ecosystem is our collective brain. And what is the collective brain? It's right here on the internet. You want to know the human condition? It's right here on the internet. The internet is nothing but our collective brain out there in cyberspace. So a critical mass of people who want to be the change they want to see in the world can actually change the collective brain, go beyond conditioning, and say, how do we do it? Who are we? What do we really want? What's our purpose? What's our calling? What's our dream? How do we execute it? As soon as we start this conversation, which we're doing right now, I'm so happy that we're starting this conversation right now, then we say, okay, now that we have these ideas, how do we execute them? And we don't need anyone. That's the beauty. We don't need it because the power is us. We and our imagination and our creativity and our love and our compassion and our self-empowerment can actually create that critical mass for a different world. And it is time for the people who were considered minorities in the past to take the responsibility to make these ideas mainstream, because these ideas, I was looking at the history of your father, who was, as you know, was a student of Mahatma Gandhi. But your father inspired Nelson Mandela as well. Nelson Mandela read the works and watched the speeches of your father. He read Mahatma Gandhi. He was friends with a minister in South Africa called John Dubé. They had this vision together because they were able to read what your father was saying. Today, we don't need just reading. We can bring back those videos and see what the world has missed out on. We can bring back those conversations. We can see how these people across the world, even in those days, were inspired without knowing each other. But today, we can do that much more effectively.
So why do you think that overcoming the systemic issues of racism and poverty are so difficult for us? Because it seems like we've obviously made some progress, but what you're talking about is raising up a collective consciousness that believes that it can introduce a whole different way of thinking and operating. And it's hard to get people to understand that, but there's something that my father said I've been trying to disprove. I embrace most of his words, but this is one thing I've been trying to disprove. He said, one of the tragedies still of human history is that the children of darkness are often more zealous and determined than the children of light. And so when I look at, the systemic ills in our society that, of course, many of us in the African-American community feel like we are faced with on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes it just seems like nothing is changing. How do you get more children of light to be persistent and consistent and usher these ideas into mainstream so it breaks these systems that we have, and really it bursts a new system? How do we burst this new system?
First of all, recognize that there is no reductionist single solution to our issues. You use the word systemic. The system is rotting. It can't get worse. The system has reached its lowest point of rotting. There's no way to go deeper into the darkness. There's no way. Yes. And one little piece of RNA, genetic information, one little piece of genetic information traveling through humankind is showing you how fragile our systems are, whether it's Wall Street or whether it's money or whether it's extreme nationalism or whether it is the old way of power mongering and influence peddling and cronyism and corruption and violence and subjugation. Those systems are falling apart right now. Right now, whether you look at the economy, whether you look at ideas of interdependence, all these things are becoming irrelevant. The price of oil has gone down so much that actually there is now a resurgence of alternative energies. And not only is there resurgence, there's interest in climate change and its reversal, because people are noticing, even with the COVID isolation, the air is cleaner, the asthmatics are breathing better. You can see the stars at night, the birds are singing, the fish have returned to some dead lakes. So what is nature telling us? Nature is saying, you humans who've lived in ignorance all this time with your racism and bigotry and ignorance, when you come back, please be a little more humble and please have more reverence for existence, because it's not all about you. It's about life on this planet. And it's not all about one race or one ethnic group or one nationality. All these trade wars, all these spy systems, all these armies, all these weapons of mechanized death, atomic weapons, biological warfare. If you were a stranger to this planet and you were looking at this planet from outside, you'd say this human race is insane. It's totally insane. They're on a collective suicide mission. And, there is enough data, by the way, from biology and evolution that shows that viruses, bacteria, and insects disappeared from our planet, in 5 years there would be no life on this planet. But if humans disappeared, in 5 years we would be back to the Garden of Eden. So who's
Wow.
more important for life? Is it the insects and the bugs, or is it human beings? We have to reflect on this. We are not respectful of existence and the gift of existence. We now, as a humanity, people are having what is called existential anxiety. They're having fear. And they're also, for the first time, thinking about death. Now, why did we take our existence for granted? Right now, the only time people don't take existence for granted is when they're extremely sick, when they get old age, when they have cancer, they're facing death, or somebody dies in the family. And now, this virus is telling us, all of you guys, why did you take existence for granted? Are you not grateful that you exist? Have you not wondered who you are beyond your racist identity? What is your real purpose in life? What are you grateful for? And how do you want to make a change right now? Because if you don't, nature will guarantee your extinction.
And it's interesting. As you were talking, I was thinking about something that I was saying to some friends of mine, that I believe going forward, most of the things that we have practiced and believed in the past that have brought us to this kind of point will not survive going forward. Selfishness will not survive going forward. Greed will not survive going forward. The kind of ignorance that we've seen displayed in recent years, it's not going to survive. The fact of the matter is, whether we realize it or not, God and the universe are now saying to us that in order to not get back to where we are today, because this has just blown so many people's mind, nothing like this before, where we've had a crisis where people couldn't even gather in their churches or mosques or synagogues. When we've had them in the past, people could go to those places. And so it's really like this necessary change and shift in the way we think and in the way we behave, and the things that we will put forward going forward, that are going to be critical to our literal survival, because we will self-destruct. That's my belief, that we'll get back. It may have taken all these years to get to this place, but it'll be much more expeditious.
Yeah, we now need not one Martin Luther King Jr. We need hundreds of them across the world.
Yes.
They're ready. They're waiting. They are ready. They're waiting. We know we need hundreds of them. And what we need is people with integrity, with authenticity, with a higher calling, and who represent fundamental truth. And the fundamental truth is, we are all equal, and we are all the same divine intelligence in a different form. And unless we recognize that, then existence knows how to self-regulate itself. Existence is not your existence, my existence, it's all existence. And all existence is the projection and the manifestation of a divine mind. And if we don't respect that, then we are risking our extinction.
Exactly. So I think we're coming close to an end. I wanted to ask you one last question, because I think, if nothing else, a lot of great lessons have been revealed to us during this time. I know during your 7 days of silence, it became even more clear about the interrelatedness, the interconnectedness, the inseparability of life and existence. My father talked about it often, about being caught in an inescapable network of mutuality and tied in a single garment of destiny. And what affects one directly affects all indirectly. But these lessons that have come to us now, and that many people are awakening, wow, I haven't spent this kind of time with my family and God knows when, sitting down at the dinner table. I've taken that for granted. Wow, the environment, as you just said, the things that are happening with the fish in the waters and the birds and the clean air, like in China, things clearing up. Wow, greater understanding and perhaps an appreciation of who and what is essential has been illuminated. How do we use our individual influence to ensure that there is a collective commitment to not forfeiting these and other lessons going forward?
I think first we start with ourselves, and then we recruit family and friends. Then we create our own communities. Then we link the communities with each other, and then we rewire the collective brain. And we can do it for the first time because we have the technologies, everything from internet to artificial intelligence to deep learning systems. It's all happening right now. I was looking at the last 100 years, and every time there was a crisis, First World War, AM radio, Second World War, television, crisis in 1988, internet, 2000, mobile phone, then smartphone, now deep learning, now artificial intelligence. We have the ability to collectively harness our intention and our imagination and our creativity. But we have to get out of the old mindset. And we cannot trust the people who are of the old mindset to change their mindset. So we have to do it together, and we have to come together, and you have to unite together, and we have to do it together, because it's not just Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream. It's now our dream.
It's our dream. I guess everybody heard that. Thank you so much for your wisdom on tonight, taking time out of your schedule to share with us. Maybe we can, as they say, chop it up again.
Yes, we should do that, and we should create practical steps for our communities.
Yes, thank you.
We should do that.
Yes,
we should create a plan, a master plan, a blueprint of practical steps for our communities.
And I'm taking you serious on that.
I am serious.
I'm going to be reaching out to you on that, because I've been waiting for that.
Yeah.
Because it's over. It's desperately needed in this past time. So thank you again. This has been refreshing, and thank you for contributing to our beloved Community Talks conversation. It's been a deep honor having you on tonight. And we appreciate all of your wisdom, your guidance. I'm encouraging you to get a copy of MetaHuman if you have not already done so. And let's all just think about what he really said. If I might just break it down, that we can free ourselves from mindsets that have trapped us in history and in patterns and behaviors that have been self-destructive and socially destructive. And we have the power within us to rise above all of the negative energy. We have the power to grab hold and use our awareness of the greater good, the commitment to, and the commitment to manifest goodness and to manifest peace. We have all of that within us, and sometimes things gotten in the way to inhibit that and prohibit that. But we're calling you forth tonight because you have the light within you, and we can certainly usher in a new day in our world. This has been a pause somewhat, but it's also been an interruption that we cannot go back to business as usual. And so we will move together collectively. Dr. Chopra, there will be a critical mass of people that come through this, and that we will work on that plan. So to stay connected to Dr. Chopra on social media, you can find his information. It should be coming up on the screen, which includes his Facebook page, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. We're going to start using these tools, these technology tools, for the good of humanity, for the good of humanity. That's why God has given them to us. And I want to remind you as we close of one of the most powerful and practical ways to demonstrate the collective power of we is to exercise your right to vote. Those folks who struggled and fought with my father to make sure that we all had a voice in our society, in our government, in our policies, was through the vote. And so if you've not done so already, please register to vote. and then vote when the election occurs. Please vote your conscience, and your informed choice. Additionally, and this is very important, if you have not already done so, please participate in the census. Let's ensure we are counted so we are not counted out. Also, the King Center invites your kids to join us in the collective power of we. Beginning May 1st, the King Center Students with King program is starting a Kids for Kindness challenge. We are challenging youth ages from grades, K through 12 to share one act of kindness during this COVID-19 pandemic. Upload the video to social media and use the hashtag Kids for Kindness SWK, which stands for Students with King. Again, use the hashtag Kids for Kindness SWK. We will repost selected posts on our social media platforms, and we cannot wait to see all the wonderful acts of kindness, because we know our children are imaginative, they are creative, and they don't have the same limitations and boundaries in their thinking that we do. And so thank you again for joining us this evening. We want you to continue to stay engaged in our beloved Community Talk series. So please follow us on Facebook and Twitter at the King Center. You can also follow me personally at Be a King Facebook page and Bernice King on Twitter and Instagram. You may also visit our website, belovedcommunitytalks.org or thekingcenter.org to stay involved in the conversation and learn how you can host your own virtual Beloved Community Talk dinner conversation. That was a lot, but thank you for engaging with us. Thank you for sharing with us. And I know that tonight you were deeply moved, that your mental wheels are turning, and that we are shifting our mindset. We are purging ourselves of those old ways of thinking that have inhibited us, that have kept us from creating a more just, humane, a more peaceful, a more healthy, a more joyful world. And so until next time, please stay safe, stay well, and have a good night.